Penguin Random House Audio presents All Fall Down by James Brabazon. Read for you by Jason O'Mara.
Prologue. Appointment an Archangel. Sunday, 27th of January, 1991. "So tell me," she said. "How does it start?" "Where all stories do," I said. "At the beginning." "And where's that?" "In Moscow. A long time ago. There was a merchant there, you see, very rich and very powerful. And one morning, this merchant, he sent his servant to the market to buy food. In a little while the servant came back empty-handed. The master was about to punish him, but he saw that the man was terrified. He was white and trembling and could hardly talk. So once he'd calmed his nerves, with vodka? Of course, it's Russia, always with vodka. So once he'd calmed his nerves, the merchant asked him what was wrong, and he said, "Master, just now when I was in the marketplace, I was jostled by a woman in the crowd. I turned around to look at her, and when I did, I saw it was Death who jostled me." "What did she say, Max?" "Nothing. She just looked at him and raised her old bony finger like this." I unfolded my right index finger and beckoned her with it. She shuddered and pulled herself closer to me. "The servant was scared out of his wits, of course," I continued, "and asked the merchant to lend him his horse so he could ride away from the city and avoid his fate. 'I'll ride all day and all night and go to your house in Archangel,' he said. 'Death will not find me there.'" "So what happened?" "Well, the merchant lent him his horse, and the servant climbed up into the saddle." "What kind of horse was it? You have to tell me all the details. Was it a stallion or a gelding?" "No, it was a mare. A pale mare, sleek and beautiful and fast as an arrow." "Could it have jumped the old fence at O'Byrne's farm?" I smiled and wrapped her fingers in mine. "Oh yes, and then some. She'd have taken the Ockram River at Unabridged with a single stride." "That's some horse he has there, Max McLean. Do you want to hear the story, or what do you want?" "Well, I would if you'd ever get on with it," she laughed. "So," I said, "the servant got up on her and dug his spurs in the mare's flanks, and they lit off at a gallop, as fast as they could. The merchant watched them go, and he was well pleased because he liked the servant and wanted him to be safe. But now he had no food in the house, so he went to the marketplace himself, and sure enough, he saw Death standing in the crowd. He went over to her, bold as you like, and said, 'Why do you threaten my servant this morning?' But Death said to the merchant, 'I didn't threaten him. He startled me. You see, I was surprised to see him here in Moscow.'" "And why is that?" asked the merchant. "Because," Death replied, "I have an appointment with him tonight, in Archangel." (1) Monday, 8th of January, 2018. It was an easy kill. He was trapped, hemmed in by the Atlantic in the wild country of Donegal. No road, no telephone, nowhere to run. On the 7th night, I pulled the plug on the skiff tied up on the beach by his cottage. I settled into a gully 150 meters from the front door and waited. A black shadow dripping rainwater in a muddy ditch. The moon was hidden by banks of cloud that rolled in across the ocean from Iceland. Thick, fast squalls cut visibility and drowned out everything except the waves ripping up the bay. The tide had turned. Conditions were perfect. He was alone. He went nowhere, did nothing, saw no one. He was scared, or stupid, or both. I didn't know who he was, or what he'd done, but at 75 he'd either forgotten how to run, or didn't think he had to anymore. Maybe he just wasn't thinking at all. Desperate men live only in the present. That much I did know. For 10 months I'd anticipated nothing beyond sunset. Since I was 16 I'd seen no further than the end of a barrel. The future was another country, explored one day at a time. Interred in his thatched stone casket, he was waiting for someone, or something. But whatever he was expecting, He wasn't expecting me. He'd already been inside for 2 days before I arrived. I watched the house for a week from a holiday park across the bay, our lives ground down to the same rhythm. Each morning he rose at 7:30. He lit an oil lamp and kept the windows covered. Candle grease smeared the panes. Only the faintest of shadows cast on the age-browned curtains allowed me to track him from the living room to the bedroom and back again. No smoke leaked from the chimney. The rooms would be damp and cold and half-heated by calor gas. There was no electricity. If he cooked at all, it would have been in the living room. There were only 2 proper rooms, and a wooden wash-house tacked on the back. An ancient extension, perhaps once an elderly relative's bedroom. Maybe it covered a wellhead, maybe he drank his whiskey neat. Either way, he'd need to resupply before long. At dusk he lit the lamp again. He extinguished it at 10, and rose at 7:30. Moss grew in the roof. Weeds tangled the kitchen garden. Garden trash was piled against the back door. The cottage was desolate, but not derelict. One of the few surviving remnants of a lost landscape of thatched poverty. Americans thought they were quaint. I thought they were more like millstones than monuments, tying us to a past that had got us where exactly? Here. Exactly. I flexed my palm around the grip of the semi-automatic and focused on the rain roar berating the headland. The nearest house was 500 meters to the northeast. It had been empty for a year, an unwanted holiday home languishing in negative equity. The track to its front door wound off to the main road 400 meters further on. 700 meters to the southeast, a couple from Birmingham gazed out over Ulster in the midst of their retirement. Good luck with that. Drungaun Loch lay due south. Everywhere else was just rough sea or sodden turf. I spent 12 hours in the gully. Out of habit, I clicked a little pebble I'd picked off the beach against the back of my teeth. I didn't need it. The rainwater kept my throat moist and my head clear. It was a 2-man job, but, as usual, I was flying solo. The details and the consequences were on me alone. While I'd snatch moments of sleep, a night vision camera picked out in electric green the whitewashed walls of his self-imposed prison. A week-long reconnaissance was just enough to establish a pattern of life, and short enough not to cause suspicion by hanging around. The target was secluded, no bystanders in the way, and none to threaten the operation. The holiday park owners were glad to take a week's rent out of season and asked no questions. If it blew up, there were only 2 people at risk, me and him. Colonel Ellard, who drilled me hard as a new recruit, had been fond of reminding me that the enemy has a vote. He won't do what you expect him to just because you want him to. That was day 2 of training, and a lifetime ago. But Ellard would have agreed there was no point figuring out what this target's plan was. He'd made a choice, and he was going to have to live with it, however briefly. The fact that he'd chosen to come here, now, was the only certainty, the only fact to consider. I assumed he was armed, and that the doors might be rigged. But only one of us was going to leave the cottage, and on the current balance of probabilities, that was going to be me. Surprise, concluded the colonel, neutralizes ignorance, briefly. But Ellard didn't send me on jobs. Commander Frank Knight did, and Frank had been clear about 2 things. The kill had to be verified, and the cottage had to be swept. I didn't know what exactly I was looking for, and neither, I suspected, did Frank. This was a rare target of opportunity, the sort I hardly ever deal with. No prep, no briefing, no one in Whitehall pretending they couldn't remember my name, just another bloody love letter from Frank to his dagger man. Maybe it was personal. Maybe I should have asked. But questions had got me into a lot of trouble in the past. For better or worse, if I was in it again, I was in it for good. No ifs, no buts, no questions. 0630. Dirt fouled my black kit, my face filthy with bog grime. I left the balaclava rolled in my pocket. There was only a dead man to see me after all. The inside edges of the tiny window frames, which in an hour would glow gold with lamplight, were still solid black. ancient beams as tough as...
Sample complete. Ready to continue?